An ordinary police station finds itself under siege when armed criminals decide to get to the man hiding inside at any cost. Now police officers and prisoners will have to unite to survive the night and fight off the attack of those who will stop at nothing. This is the movie Assault on Precinct 13. Sergeant Jake Roenick, posing as a dealer of illegal substances, tries to convince the buyers of the purity of his product. However, one of them, noticing Tony, who just arrived, recognizes him as the cop who testified against his brother. Trying to maintain his cover, Jake pretends he does not understand what he is talking about. Tension reaches its peak, and unexpectedly, Carol and the criminal shoot simultaneously. She kills the criminal, but Jake is wounded. In the commotion, Mark manages to escape, and the police officers, splitting up, rush after him. Hearing gunfire, Jake moves toward the sound and finds Tony's body. At the same time, Carol, having gone down to the first floor, tries to stop the fugitive, but he kills her too. And Jake, arriving too late, finally deals with Mark. Waking up 8 months later in his apartment, Jake takes antidepressants and heads to the police station, where along with the secretary Iris and Sergeant Jasper O'Shea, he is supposed to ring in the last New Year in the old building. The precinct is closing, and they are being transferred to a new department. All that remains is to carry out a formality by spending one last duty shift at the 13th precinct. A carefree evening awaits them, but Jake's mood is ruined by Iris, who reminds him that he has an appointment with a psychologist. Alex inquires about the sergeant's condition, but he is tired of empty talk and asks her to leave him alone, at least for today. The psychologist herself does not mind finishing quickly, as she is rushing to a party, and seizing the moment, Jake discreetly pulls his file out of her bag. Meanwhile, on the other side of Detroit, crime boss Marion Bishop meets with an organized crime officer inside a church. The negotiations quickly reach a dead end, and realizing that the pressure on him is mounting, Bishop cold-bloodedly kills the officer with an ordinary pen. Attempting to escape without raising unnecessary suspicion, he leaves the church, but almost immediately falls into the hands of the police. He is brought to the station, where Marcus Duval, the chief of the murdered officer, learns that there will be no bail anytime soon, as the courts are closed for the holidays. While a holiday get-together takes place at the 13th precinct, during which Jasper shares news of his upcoming retirement, Bishop is placed on a prison bus in the company of petty criminals. Heavy snowfall and a highway accident make the further transfer of the prisoners impossible. After contacting their superiors, the escort receives orders to wait out the bad weather at the 13th precinct while awaiting further instructions. Attaching no importance to the suspicious car tailing them, Gil changes route and soon safely reaches the destination. He introduces Jake to the detainees, emphasizing that the most dangerous figure among them is Marion Bishop, known for killing police officers. Going up to his office, the sergeant meets Alex, whose car slid into a snowdrift near the station. Jake admits that what he read in his file does not match reality, but Alex is convinced otherwise. In her opinion, Jake still blames himself for the death of his partners, and possessing extensive service experience, chose to hide in this god-forsaken place, seeking to escape not only from his past, but also from his own sense of responsibility. She is certain that he should not sink into guilt over what happened, much less try to wall himself off from reality with alcohol and pills. Meanwhile, the New Year's celebration among the cops continues at the station, while the prisoners in their cells cannot get along even for the holiday, arguing over the slightest pretext. At that moment, a car pulls up to the building, and two masked men step out of it. Taking advantage of the darkness, they quietly slip into the basement. Hearing a noise and assuming that the prisoners have started another fight, Henry goes downstairs to restore order. But as soon as he appears, he comes face to face with the unknowns, who open fire. Before falling, he manages to fire off a shot, raising the alarm and drawing the attention of the rest of the precinct staff. Realizing that the surprise attack has failed, the attackers hastily leave the building, and Gil rushes in pursuit, but gets wounded. With difficulty dragging the wounded man inside, Jake realizes that Henry did not survive, while Jasper immediately blames Bishop, believing that his men are trying to free their leader. Jasper makes another discovery. The attackers have not left. On top of that, they have completely cut off communication with the outside world. Landlines are disabled, and radio signals and mobile networks are jammed. A stone thrown through the window with the crime boss's name on it confirms Jasper's suspicion, and he suggests handing the criminal over so no one else gets hurt. But Jake refuses. He does not want a cop killer to escape punishment. Unexpectedly, the power in the building cuts out, and the sergeant orders the doors and windows to be barricaded. Realizing that Gil has little time left, Jake decides to slip out of the station unnoticed and call for help. Stepping out of the precinct, Jake approaches the bus and encounters one of the thugs. A fight breaks out between them, during which the sergeant gains the upper hand by shoving a chunk of ice into his opponent's eye. The bus turns out to be disabled, and Jake returns to the station, having first pulled an identification card from the pocket of the dead man. The killed man turns out to be a police officer. Connecting this to Bishop's case, the sergeant decides to talk to the criminal himself. He cannot understand why cops are risking their lives to get Bishop out. That is when Marion explains that one of his accomplices was Marcus Duval, the chief of the murdered officer. Previously, they split the money equally, but over time, Duval began demanding more, which became the cause of the conflict. When they tried to get rid of him, he killed a police officer in a church, and now those who wanted to eliminate him are striving to reach him by any means possible. If he stands trial, the involvement of the entire organized crime division in criminal schemes will become public. Having listened to Marion's story, Jake realizes that no one will let them out either. By taking the identification card of the dead man, the sergeant effectively signed their death warrant, as it becomes clear that they are surrounded by police officers. Iris reports that Gil has passed away, while Alex notices approaching cars in the window. Jasper once again offers to hand over Bishop, but Jake is certain that this will change nothing because everyone knows too much. The sergeant proposes taking up a perimeter defense and waiting until morning. At the same time, as if confirming Jake's words, Duval convinces a hesitant Paul that everyone must be killed, otherwise the entire department will end up behind bars. Jake has to quickly bring all the prisoners up to speed, warning them that if the police breach the building, no one will be left alive. Going upstairs and looking out the window, the sergeant notices that the besiegers are preparing for an assault. The cops cover the building with a barrage of gunfire, while simultaneously trying to breach the basement with another group. Beck makes noise, calling for Jake to come downstairs, and he manages to arrive just in time. He kills one attacker and wounds a second, forcing him to retreat. Realizing that they cannot fight off the attack on their own, Jake decides to arm the prisoners. At this time, the breach team prepares for a new attack. Two attackers kick down the door and try to enter, but the sergeant stops them, while Anna, arriving just in time, opens fire from the other flank, driving the enemies back. Alex, unable to pull herself together, leaves her post, and another SWAT officer enters through a window. He does not manage to kill her because the arriving Smiley and Beck beat the attacker to death. Taking possession of the rifle, Beck goes up to the second floor and begins firing indiscriminately. Bishop joins the defense as well, and the SWAT officers are forced to retreat. When the attack ends, Jasper demands that the criminals return the weapons, but they refuse, confident that without their help, the cops cannot hold the station, and consequently cannot save them either. Jake realizes that the real enemy is outside, not inside, and demands that his partner lower his weapon if he wants to survive this night. Spreading out to their positions, the besieged prepare for a new attack, while Duval calls in a helicopter. Bishop thanks Jake for saving him and not handing him over to Duval, but warns that if the cop finds himself in danger, he will not come to the rescue. Their conversation is interrupted by Jasper, who reports that someone else has arrived. It is Capra, and realizing that he might be killed, Iris warns him of the danger. He speeds off, and after driving around the precinct, crashes into a snowdrift. Despite the risk, Jake helps him out of the car and literally drags him inside the station. Capra admits that he came only to wish everyone a happy holiday, but Beck does not believe him and is certain that the cop is in cahoots with Duval. Jake asks Beck to lower his weapon, but does not back down and insists on locking the cop up. Then Bishop, using his authority, pacifies Beck and reminds him that Sergeant Roenick is in charge here. The situation cools down, and Bishop suggests using Capra's car to call for help. Jake doubts they will succeed, especially since the car keys were lost somewhere in the snow. Then Anna admits that she knows how to hotwire a vehicle without keys, and Alex agrees to go with her, arguing that her presence here brings no benefit, but this way, she can help. Meanwhile, Smiley and Beck decide to escape. They set the bus on fire to create a distraction and leave the precinct. Bishop realizes that the runaways will be killed anyway, but now Anna has a chance to reach the car. They rush toward it, and Anna manages to start it with difficulty. At the same time, the two runaways reach the fence, but a sniper eliminates first Smiley and then Beck. The sight of the driving car gives the besieged hope of salvation, but a police officer was already waiting for them in the back seat. Anna is killed with a shot to the head, and the car crashes into a pole. It is important for Duval to know how many people are left inside, but Alex refuses to speak. A gunshot follows. All through these past months, Jake has been hiding from his problems and fears with the help of pills and alcohol, and now, finding himself in a hopeless situation, he admits that he does not know how to proceed. He blames himself for letting Alex take that crazy step, and is about to resort to his old, proven method. Bishop convinces him that the fight is not over yet, and Jake gathers his strength, returning to action. He once again assigns the remaining people to their positions, tasking Capra with guarding the staircase. Soon, Bishop notices an open door, and seeing SWAT officers running away from the building, accuses Capra of talking to them. Jake believes Bishop, and demands that Capra confess to betrayal, but the interrogation is interrupted by the arrival of a helicopter. Another team of SWAT officers lands on the roof, while Jasper reports that he found a way out. Handcuffing Capra and sending them toward the exit, Jake asks Bishop to help him. He decides to set the precinct on fire before leaving it, in order to stall at least briefly the final attack of the SWAT officers who have already breached the interior. It turns out that Jasper remembered an old sewer main, and going down into the tunnel that leads them to a neighboring street, they emerge on the surface. Unexpectedly, Bishop takes Iris hostage, declaring that he will release her as soon as he gets out of here. However, the arrival of the SWAT team ruins his plans. Jake cannot understand how they were found, but seeing Jasper greet Duval, he realizes everything. It was Jasper standing by the door, not Capra, and he was the one who came up with the idea to lead everyone out of the precinct. Jasper blames Jake for not handing over Bishop when there was a chance. Then Marion calls Jasper a coward, and Jasper lunges at him. Unnoticed, Bishop slips a flashbang grenade into Jasper's pocket and silently mouths to Jake to close his eyes. A bright flash illuminates the darkness, blinding the SWAT officers, and the prisoners manage to neutralize them. Jake covers the retreat of Iris and Capra, while Duval rushes after Bishop. Paul shoots at the tires of the speeding car, and Iris loses control of the vehicle. Approaching her, Paul tries to strangle her, but without panicking, Iris kills the police officer with his own knife. Meanwhile, Jake runs into the nearby forest, where he hopes to find Duval and the remaining SWAT officer. He has to rely on his hearing, while his opponent is equipped with a night vision device. Duval sends his operator ahead, but Bishop returns after all, since Duval is still alive, and for him, that is unacceptable. However, the problem is that Marcus's operative can see them, while they cannot see him. Then Jake offers to act as bait, so that Bishop can locate the enemy by his gunshots. The plan works, and Marion kills the last SWAT officer, but falls into Duval's trap himself, getting wounded. The corrupt cop demands that Bishop call out to Jake, but the criminal refuses. However, the sergeant finds Duval on his own and demands that he drop his weapon. He refuses, and 2 gunshots ring out simultaneously. Jake gets wounded, but kills Marcus. Barely standing on his feet, Bishop approaches the sergeant and asks him not to pursue him, after which he disappears into the darkness. Lying in the snow, Jake is found by Iris, who ran up alongside the arriving police and firefighters. An officer asks where Bishop is, but the sergeant calmly replies that besides himself, there is no one here. Jake Ronick spent months hiding behind pills and regret, but when his precinct came under fire, he found the strength to step back into the line of duty. Side by side with criminals, he survived a night of total betrayal and faced down corruption to uphold the law. In the freezing dark, he stopped pretending to be helpless and finally remembered what it truly means to be a cop.